Hey everyone, welcome back to your Bitcoin Story podcast with your host Gigi. This summer, I'm bringing you something special, a series of short, punchy episodes recorded live at BTC Prague 2025. I sat down with builders, thinkers, and sovereign minds shaping the future of Bitcoin. I'll be dropping a new episode every Tuesday throughout July and August, so make sure to subscribe, hit like, and share it with fellow Bitcoiners. And a quick reminder, if you need help taking control of your Bitcoin security, check out my one-on-one mentorship program at Become Unruggable. You can reach out to me via the link in the show notes below. Welcome to another episode of Your Bitcoin Story. This is the BTC Prague edition, and I have the pleasure of having my good friend Aleksandar Svetski back on the show to quickly talk about this masterpiece that we have right here, his latest book, The Bitcoin Bushido. Probably one of my favorite latest Bitcoin literatures, and I advise everyone who hasn't yet read it, we'll have the link to the book to Amazon in the show notes. But Alex, welcome back. It's been quite a lot of things happened since you were last on the show.
So many.
But I guess on this short episode, we could a little bit put the focus on the Bitcoin Bushido. How did this come around, and essentially, what was your reason for releasing it into the world?
Yeah, so I think did we discuss it originally on our podcast?
No,
we
this
didn't.
was pre.
Oh, this was pre. Okay, wow. So the origin story is I fell down the Japanese sort of feudal rabbit hole in 2020 when I was in Germany during the lockdowns, and I was listening to a book called Shogun by James Clavell. Yeah, and I like to listen to my fiction because I don't know, like things that are more abstract and non-fiction. Like if it's something prescriptive, I like to just read it. Like, so if I'm reading a book on Austrian economics, for example, I'll read that, I won't listen to it. But if it's a story, if it's a narrative, I'll listen to it. And Shogun is one of the best written narratives ever, number one. And number two, it is very, very well read on Audible. So I was listening to this book and it was transporting me 500 years ago or 400 years into the past. And I'm reading this story, listening to this story about like honor and courage and justice, and like how these ancient samurais or these feudal samurais would like literally cut out their own fucking spleen if they, slightly disrespected their master. And then I would go outside and there was people were wearing masks on the street, and I was like, what is going on? I was like, I'm in the wrong universe. Like something happened and we ended up on another timeline. So it was very strange. That kind of led me down. It rekindled my interest in history, because I was very interested in history, and I read a lot about like Alexander the Great and all of this when I was young. And it rekindled that, and it like fired me up. So that's where I really sort of came across the concept of Bushido. And then I think it was a year or two later, I did a podcast with Eric Kaysen, and we discussed Shogun, the original book. And from there, I wanted to write something which was about the emergent values coming out of the Bitcoin space, and that was the original thought of the book. But after 8 drafts, it became something completely different. So it wasn't so much about what are the emergent values in Bitcoin, but more like what are the timeless virtues that are necessary to establish a functional culture and civilization, and how can we bring those back and inculcate them on a Bitcoin standard in order to have a functional, vital world in the future. So anyway, that's a really long answer, but that's the origin story.
No, and thanks for sharing that. And it's something that's highly needed in today's clown world, where things are happening without any logic, and people are kind of grasping onto how to live their lives. And by switching on the TV or swiping your phone, it doesn't help in any way. And as you said, kind of what history teaches in these ancient ways, we prospered as a humanity. And today, in the year of 2025, we're in a way the most advanced society that's ever been in the world with all this tech and protocols that we have. It's crazy that we've kind of done this 180 degrees and went fully backwards, and we live in this kind of dystopian world. I guess the 6 Bushido virtues, which you took away, and then you added an extra 2 of your own, right?
8 plus 2, so there's 10.
8 plus 2.
Yeah.
Sorry, the maths, it was a close one. What made you add those 2 extra ones?
I mean, I think that they're the 2 things that are lacking the most in the world today, which I think, so the two, so the traditional Japanese Bushido was courage, justice, compassion, honor, integrity.
Temperance? No.
No, it was
No.
kind of like basically temperance or self-control
Mm-hmm.
or restraint, what they called. What were the other two? There was duty and loyalty and respect.
Respect.
Yeah, or politeness as they called it. So they were
A
the
really
eight.
important one, which we
Yeah,
have no respect today.
exactly. So those eight, and it wasn't like it wasn't written down somewhere. Like it was just this. These were the verbal or the cultural virtues that were
They were passed
instilled.
on.
Exactly. And the two that I added were responsibility and excellence. They were never very explicit in these older codes, and I made them more explicit in this book because I feel like they're the two things that were lacking the most. And in my opinion, back then, in those periods and in that day and age, people were more responsible because you didn't have like a nanny state and technology and all. You didn't have a safety net,
Yeah.
so you had to be like the world was way more decentralized. It was way more local. So responsibility in a localized sense is a survival mechanism, right? These days you don't have to be responsible for shit.
Everything's done for
So
you.
everything's done for you, exactly. So that was one piece that I really felt, and I think the responsibility chapter is one of my strongest chapters. Like I've had hundreds of people message me or email me, say, holy shit, the responsibility chapter changed my life. Like I didn't think about this way or whatever. And then excellence, in my opinion, was the natural order of things. All throughout human history, we have aspired to greater heights, or which is effectively what excellence means. The word excellent means to separate oneself from the average, like to climb the mountain. And that is once again missing today. We live in a society of average, and I want to just be very clear. It's not all bad. It's not all clown world. It's not all average. There's clearly like pockets of
There's the
hope.
80-20.
Exactly, the
Pareto's
80-20, exactly, it
ratio does come
exists.
in.
Well, maybe the challenge is it's not 80-20 at the moment. Maybe the challenge is it's 99-1. You get me? And I
Yeah.
think what we need to do is move it back to 80-20. Because by definition, you couldn't have excellence be 80% and 20% be average. Because
That's true.
the definition of excellence is to be in the 20%, right?
Yeah.
So my sense in the world is that we are overly skewed to average and mediocre, lack of responsibility and all of that sort of stuff. So we need to get it back closer to 20%, because with 20%, you have the gravity to make the other 80% basically irrelevant. And I don't mean irrelevant like you get rid of them. I mean like irrelevant that their stupidity doesn't impact everything
Doesn't
else.
affect you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting, the responsibility factor. I talk a lot about it on the podcast, where Bitcoin does teach you to become more responsible, because going down to, if you don't have your 12 or 24 seed phrase saved and taken care of, well, there's no reset password. It's gone forever. And I get this argument online where people are like, well, you can lose that and it's not the safest thing. And it always comes back to responsibility. If you're not responsible, if you can't keep 12 words safe, well, God help you. There's a lot more things. And especially as you become a father, and I've been going through that journey for many years, the responsibility factor just creeps up, and you got to be more responsible, take things into your own hands. And I think that's something that Bitcoin and on a Bitcoin standard, people will essentially have to adapt, be more responsible, which, as you said, for the last 100 years, we've kind of, as humanity, we've been softened down into these just cattle where everything is outsourced to other parties. But then sometimes when it doesn't work out, you're helpless. Which is insane. For example, we're so reliant on tech with phones and laptops. If you lose your phone, I had this experience about a month ago. I went to a bachelor party, and at some point, 2 a.m, I'm looking for my phone and it's not there, and I sobered up in a nanosecond. And I was like, holy shit, I've got so much stuff on that phone. Where is it? And the whole bachelor party went from partying to looking for Gigi's phone. We thankfully found it in my pocket. I had one drink too many, which I never put in the pocket, it's always in my jeans. But in that moment, I reflected. I was like, oh my God, I'm so reliant on this little super device that if I lose it, like everything's gone. And then I realized, well, maybe, responsibility. Maybe I should have backups. Maybe I should, prevent things to get rid of that, case scenario where there's one vector attack, you lose it or you get it stolen, and you're kind of, you're on your own, which is crazy. Where we're so interconnected that it's like a external body part with these devices.
Yeah, I wonder what's going to happen when people start putting Neuralinks in their head. They're like, Forgot my brain, man.
Where's the head? So I wanted to touch upon with your book, and you do mention it once you started writing it, and I think you were writing over a course of 2 years, if I'm not mistaken, right? This wasn't a one summer binge write. You came out to so much content where you were like, wow, like maybe I should break it up and do a sequel book for it. So maybe you could share a little bit about what's happening in the sequel, what to expect, and when potentially would that be coming out? I know it's tough to say, but
Yeah.
like maybe we'll leave when it's coming out of the context because those deadlines always shift. But
Yep.
how's the progression and kind of the reasoning for the next part?
So, yeah, the book ended up something like 160, 170,000 words, and I still wasn't done. And then me and my editor were like, man, this is fucked. No one's going to read, no one's going to read 800 pages. What's wrong with you? So we're like, okay, we're going to chop the shit out of this thing. And there was like parts that were hacking, and I was like, man, it's like such good content. What are we going to do with it? We're like, just like, save it for later, save it for later. We'll see if we can like integrate it somewhere else or whatever. And it was honestly like cutting a book is harder than writing a book, I think. Like, or I think Paul Graham said it. He said, it takes twice as long to write something short. So we ended up with all of these pages. We ended up with all these sections. I had to then like try and group it better. And we moved shit between different sections like 10 times. The book originally was going to be 3 parts, then it was 4 parts, then it was 5 parts, now it's 6 parts, right? We created like a prelude to kind of like set the stage of the book.
Yeah.
Then we kept obviously the origins in there, the history, how things came to be. The virtues is the main chunk of the book. Then it follows integration, then praxis, and then the visions of the future. So the 2 big parts that I took out was I had a bunch of micro essays in there that were similar to the prelude, that were about like basically reflections on freedom and war, on beauty, on metaphysics, and all these kind of slightly more esoteric ideas which were very relevant to the theme but didn't fit very nicely in there. So I pulled a bunch of them out, and they basically make up a book of their own. There's and not a long book like this one, but probably like a 20, 30,000 page book. And
Words, you mean?
yeah, sorry. I do mean words. That would be a long book. That's the book about understanding women. They're never ending. Understanding my wife. The book keeps going. Yeah, 20 to 30,000 words, which would probably be like a 200-page book, something like that, maybe a little bit less. And it's sitting there. I've actually got the first draft because I could technically publish that as a book. But I want to structure it properly and polish the edges and like drive home a few other ideas.
Master it.
Yes, I want to master it, exactly. Like it needs to be completed. And I guess I'm at the stage of life where I really want to produce nice things. Like this is a nice thing to produce.
Yeah.
What I'm trying to build with Satlantis, like, some people say, oh, you just got to like ship. And shipping is good, like, and we ship fast, but they're like, just ship it quick and dirty. Doesn't matter, like MVP. And I'm like, no, MVPs fucking suck. I want to build an SLC, which is a simple, lovable, and complete product. Like something that is nice and it's like, it delights people, not just quick and
It's
dirty
wholesome.
and ugly.
It's not like something with
half-baked piece of crap, you know what I mean? So the next book, part 2, is going to be called Metaphysics of War and Beauty. So that'll be the second book. And I don't think I'm going to get it done this year. I think the earliest I'll touch it is next year. So I'll probably look to release it towards the end of next year. So that'll be the goal. And then there'll be a third book as well. So that one's going to be called Visions of the Future. Obviously at the end of the book, those visions of the future. So I had a whole section there which I kind of war roomed out what the future of governance might look like. And
it's going to be a semi-fiction.
Well, not really, because it's the fictional story in there is what took the place of the original philosophy, right? So that philosophy, I took out all of the stuff that I was thinking of and I interpreted that through a story.
Gotcha.
So that's how the story ended up in there, because that was actually my editor. He was like reading through the Visions of the Future section. He's like, man, this is good stuff. But he's like, you know what? I've just read fucking 450 pages of like you philosophizing. He's like, tell me a story.
Yeah.
Like don't tell me what the future is going to be like. show me. And so I took those ideas. Oh, that's a great idea. So let me try and put that into a story. So I will at some stage write a proper handbook for who I believe are going to be the CEO kings of the future. So that'll be called Visions of the Future. And then the amount of people who've messaged me about the story and like how much they liked it, they're like, dude, you should write a short series of stories on this. And I was like, okay, fine. I'll do that at some stage too. So I'll do a series of fiction stories as well that extend on the one in there.
I'm really happy to hear that, because I told Alex when we were speaking just off the record a bit earlier that the story at the end that Alex puts out, kind of the vision of the future and the year depicting 2084, is chilling, exhilarating, and it's like, wow, we need to get our shit together today to not make that happen. And I found it really entertaining, so I'm really happy to hear that you're going to be releasing some more of those, because there's also some people that prefer those, they get impacted much more through storytelling and fictional writing than
we all do.
theories.
Yeah, we all do. And that's like, I mean, you'll notice in the book what I tried to do with every single virtue was I tried to tell a story about how that virtue was lived or embedded or inculcated into the society or the culture. So that's, I mean, I'm adamant these days that stories are much more powerful than anything else. And
100%.
I try and like do everything in a story
I
capacity.
couldn't agree more. That's essentially the ethos of the show.
Yeah,
What's your Bitcoin story? It was all about
yeah.
stories, because there's a lot of podcasts, Bitcoin and non-Bitcoin, that go into technical stuff and just updates about what's happening. Whereas to me, I truly believe, as well as you do, Alex, that storytelling is the most impactful way. Going back to the Bible and all the scriptures, they were all stories. It wasn't a theory depicting how things are, but it was all through storytelling. And I think storytelling can have a much stronger impact than some graphs or charts and whatnot.
It's
So
deep in our brain, yeah.
for sure. So I guess we won't touch too much upon Satlantis. We'll have a separate episode coming up in the near future on that. But just as a prelude, you have some big announcements coming up at BTC Prague, right? Which we're going to yet to hear. But a partake in the announcement, you'll have to watch the after recordings after the conference to see what the announcement will be. I don't even know myself. But essentially, how's your vision for Satlantis, where you are now for the next year, and where you're headed?
Oh man, like, so this will be the first public release, like, and I can't wait for people to show it, try it, check it out. It's beautiful. So the app is about bringing together people with places and events. Like that's the sort of, because what happened about a decade ago was social networks turned into social media. And I'm not making a judgment call here. I personally don't think it's a good thing, but for some people it's great. The difference between a social network and social media is that on a social network, the kind of content or the kind of information or data or stuff that I find is based on my social graph, like who I'm connected to. In social media, the social graph is less important. What's more important is the algorithm and how the algorithm selects content to distribute.
And virality, whatever's viral just gets pushed through.
Exactly. So what you get is much better discoverability than on a social graph. So social networks don't have great discoverability, but social media has fantastic discoverability. The trade-off is that social networks, you can build depth. Social media, you don't build depth. You just like get sucked into the fucking content of everything that's viral, and it just like draws you in. You don't see any content from the people you actually follow. You just see whatever the algo serves you. And it becomes this kind of like, I don't know, it's like a vortex into content hell, you know what I mean? Like it's I don't think it's very healthy. So I also don't believe it's going to stop, because it's these models, like when you combine advertising with engagement and an algorithm and media, it turns into this like monster that
Never-ending loop.
sort of, exactly, and sucks everything in, but it's extremely profitable, and that's a hard cycle to break. So instead of trying to change social media, what I want to do is bring back social networks. And as the online world gets eaten by AI slop and all of this sort of shit, which is where everyone is, I think over here we can start to build networks again amongst people who are like-valued and like-minded, but like-valued being more important. And then use the social graph to serve them more than just content, but also recommendations on where to go, where to eat, gyms, this, that, like, so places. And we've got 6 categories of places in our app. We've got cafes and restaurants, health and wellness, attractions, which could be anything from a museum to a mountain, nightlife, groceries and like markets. So you can find your farmers markets, this, that, all this kind of thing on there. And what's the 6th one? Event spaces and co-working, right? So they're the 6 most important categories, other than accommodation. But accommodation is a very hard nut to crack, so we're going to worry about that later. But those 6 categories, when you're traveling, when you're trying to live a more location-independent lifestyle, even when you're at home in like sort of in your own community, you want to understand what are the best places based on my interests and my social graph. Like,
No.
if I was to come and visit you in your city, like, I want to know
Where
what
do I
you
go? Yeah,
recommended
yeah.
exactly. And maybe I don't need to know exactly where you went, but if you and I have similar interest graph, the places that you have recommended that should add weight to whatever it is that I'm discovering along the way. So there's
Aligning them together.
exactly. So I firmly believe there is an application for social graphs beyond just content, and that's what we're trying to do with Satlantis. So I know this was like a really long way of answering it, but yeah, Satlantis
But
is an app about connecting people in the real world by using social graph and interest graph to unite them.
and I think another super important key part with that is connecting on a deeper level, where social media, as it started initially, was supposed to connect us together. Now it's kind of taken us so far apart that nobody even gets together to sit down for a coffee and have a chat about things. And with a social graph, it really goes on a deeper level where you are communicating with the people that you know, and you take it a step further and you feel more connected. Whereas social media, the bigger, as you said, this vortex of algo ad shilling, it just pushes you away, and it's definitely not healthy. And being a father of young daughters, like, I really don't want them to be sucked into that vortex. Like, I would like a parallel system like you're building with Atlantis, where they can connect with people that, you know, have the same values, have the same, you know, vision of the world. So I'm super excited. I've been part of the,
Yes, you have
thankfully
the
to you,
ambassador
you
group.
invited me as an ambassador in the early inception days of it. And as we see it develop, I'm super excited for what's there. And people still don't grasp the potential that it has. It's just like when Steve Jobs came out and, you know, introduced the iPhone with the App Store, and people are like, oh, well, who's going to be doing it? And now the App Stores rule the whole, you know, telecommunication world. I think social graphs such as Atlantis, and I think there will be other projects that will kind of see the impact this Atlantis does, and they will be sprouting up around the world. And I think that's a much healthier way for us to progress. So yeah, I'm super excited on that one. I think we have just a few more minutes left. Alex, anything else you want to share with the audience, cycling back to the Bushido of Bitcoin, virtue, and maybe beauty? I know beauty is something that's very close to your heart and something that's really lacking in today's world. We live in this, you know, massive concrete jungles which have no beauty. We are thankfully in Prague now, which is a beautiful city. St. Petersburg, where I'm based, I mean, my dog walks is just, I don't listen to podcasts. I go around and I dwell at the buildings that were built hundreds of years ago, all lit up at night. Like, you see the true beauty in it. And now today, modern cities is just skyscrapers, metal and glass, and there's no beauty in it.
I can't wait to visit you, man. Like,
You will.
St. Petersburg has been like so hard, like top of my list for so long.
It'll be well worth it. You know, all good things take time. So I'll show you a great time, and
can't
it'll
wait.
be nice. But on the concept of beauty, what do you want to leave our listeners with?
I mean, I don't know if people have heard me say this, so I'll say it. I did a whole talk about it last year at the conference, is that the true countermeasure to communism is beauty,
Beauty.
right? And like, people think it's capitalism. Even I thought it was capitalism for many years, until I realized the reality of the matter is communism is the manifestation of ugliness. It's the manifestation of trying to bring what is higher down and to level it all out.
To make it common, basically.
Exactly, to make it common, exactly. And beauty is uncommon, and it is something that inspires us. And I think what humans need more than anything else in order to climb and to reach and to live and to prosper and to progress is inspiration. And if you don't have inspiration, you don't put in the effort that is necessary to do all of that sort of stuff, and you don't have inspiration without beauty. Like, so I think it's so fundamental to a healthy existence, to a healthy society, to a healthy world, to like all of that sort of stuff. I mean, the concept of health is embedded in beauty. Like, you see someone who's like healthy and strong and everything, they're beautiful.
That's true.
So it's such a deep concept, and I feel that people's understanding of beauty is really, it's messed up these days. They're like, oh yeah, but people get fillers in their plastic surgery. It's like, well, that's not beauty. That's fake. Like, beauty is something that is real. It's raw. And if someone is trying to fake something all the time, know that means that thing is valuable. You don't counterfeit. I'm not going to go and counterfeit this bottle, but I'll try and counterfeit some gold.
Yeah.
So it's like, if it's valuable, I'll try and counterfeit it. So like, beauty is so valuable, intrinsically valuable. So I disagree completely with the Austrian economics here. They're like, oh, nothing's intrinsically valuable. Beauty is intrinsically valuable because we feel it in our soul. It's like in our DNA, it's in our makeup. And yeah, I urge people to dig more on this topic. It's a beautiful thing.
I couldn't agree more. And going back to the history aspect, seeing the cathedrals that were built 500 years ago, you walk in and you can't describe it. You have this inner feeling where you're like, wow, like this is out of this world. And those cathedrals and all the beautiful paintings on the ceilings, they were done like 500, 600, 700 years ago, and they're still standing there today, showcasing their beauty, where today's architecture definitely lacks that. You're lucky if a building survives 10 years before it starts cracking, molding, and everything. So yeah, maybe we should switch out the communism for beautyism to make the world a better place. Guys, thanks a lot for tuning into this episode. I hope you got inspired by Mr. Svetski's wise words. Definitely, I advise, once again, to get yourself a copy of the amazing Bushido of Bitcoin book. As I said in the beginning, this is one of my favorite literatures that I read recently, and something that's highly needed in our chaotic world. Prosper, be the best that you can, go for excellence, respect, mutual collaboration. And Svetski, I look forward to having you back
Thank you,
in the future. All the best with everything, and we'll see you guys on the next one.